5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Watchtower is online.
In a world where the CW's primetime lineup is filled to the brim with the superheroes of the DC Universe, one group of podcasters takes to the airwaves, get ready to journey to the worlds of The Flash, Black Lightning, Supergirl, Arrow, and DC's Legends of Tomorrow with the Just Us Watchtower. Now here's your host, Kevin J. Kessler.
My name is Kevin J. Kessler. After 7 years of DC superhero programming, I've returned to the podcast airwaves with one purpose, to overanalyze the crap out of it. But to do that, I couldn't be the podcaster I once was. I had to bring in someone else. Something else. I needed the Just Us Watchtower. Folks, welcome to the inaugural episode of the Just Us Watchtower. As I said, my name is Kevin J. Kessler, and this is a brand new show. Thank you so much to everyone that's made this possible, everyone over at the Hang With Web Show and Krypton Radio. We are very pleased to be bringing you guys, analyzing every single week the DC programming of the CW network. So that's The Flash, that's Supergirl, that's Arrow, that's Legends of Tomorrow, that's Black Lightning. But to do that every week, I'm going to have a rotating duo of hosts that are going to be in here with me. You're going to see a lot of the same faces popping up here and there, but on the whole, it's going to be a rotating cast of characters that we're going to have here on the Watchtower. So first, if you guys ever listen to my old podcast, The Geek Watchtower, you will know this person. He was my old co-host from that show. Very happy to have him here on the inaugural episode from Chris Doherty's Quest from Screen Accuracy, professional cosplayer, Chris Doherty. How are you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great, Kevin. I'm glad to be back. It's great to have the Watchtower back online in some form or another. So it's really exciting to be back here.
And also coming to you guys, one of my very best friends from the world of professional wrestling. It is the promoter of the UWA Elite Pro Wrestling promotion out of New Jersey. Is Dave Swan. How you doing, Dave?
I'm doing great, Kevin. Thanks for having me on the premiere episode here.
I'm
very, very, very interesting.
Yes, absolutely, because these shows are going. Some of them are going off the rails, some of them are super on the rails, and Legends of Tomorrow, I don't know what they're doing, but I absolutely love it, so I can't wait to get there. So without any further ado, I say let's just jump right in. We are going to start it off with Supergirl. So that is Supergirl Season 4, Episode 3, Man of Steel. Now, I didn't look at any previews for any of these episodes, so when I first saw that the name of the episode was Man of Steel, I got super excited because I'm Superman garbage. Mm-hmm. And Swan, did you have the same opinion when you saw it? Because Swan is another Superman fan.
Yeah, I mean, I knew that Superman wasn't going to be in it, but I was kind of hoping that we were going to get something Superman related. Of course, we didn't.
No,
but we did get a whole lot of Smallville alumni, which was fun.
Yeah. So, what we're going to do with all these episodes, we're going to go through one at a time. And Swan, since you've already started, why don't you give your overall impressions of Supergirl Episode 3, Man of Steel?
I thought this was a very good episode. I thought it was very interesting. It's funny. We were actually just talking not too long ago about this new trend in different TV shows about giving entire episodes to a secondary character for backstory.
Right.
And then sure enough, Supergirl did that. I thought that the backstory that they gave for the villain of the season, I thought it made sense. And I enjoyed the episode. I did.
Yeah, no, I did absolutely as well. So is there anything else who were the Smallville alumni that you saw? Because I don't recall.
Well, the main character is Davis Bloom.
Oh, well, yeah, of course. My most hated character of all time, Davis Bloom, a.k.a. Doomsday, from one of the worst seasons of Smallville. And I got to tell you, I've held it against Sam Witwer, the actor, for a long time that he was Davis Bloom. But when I get into my review of it, I'm going to touch on that a little bit more. So, Chris, why don't you give us your overall impressions of this episode of Supergirl?
I thought it was a lot of fun. Definitely a little different than what it's been going doing a flashback and just a villain specific kind of origin story, for lack of a better word. You definitely felt compassion for Sam Witwer's character, who I believe we still haven't officially named yet.
No, we have Ben Lockwood. Ben Lockwood is his name. He's also known as Agent Liberty.
Agent Liberty. That's
Swan, that's right. It's Agent Liberty, right?
Yeah. Yes.
They haven't actually said it out loud, but I know.
Well, that's more what I meant. I was like, officially,
Yeah.
I don't think that they've named him Agent Liberty, but it's Agent Liberty.
Yeah.
But like, it was definitely good. The Graves siblings have always been a great foil. It's interesting to see Otis played this way versus being like a bumbling, larger buffoon.
Okay, Mr. Luthor, yeah, like.
Well, you know what? Exactly. It's just like that's how I always envision Otis Graves, and that's how he's always been portrayed. So, but Supergirl is always about let's go and take these characters who you know is one way and completely reinventing them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, James Olsen is not Jimmy Olsen. So the same thing with
very
Otis.
much so.
Well, you know what I mean? Exactly.
Yeah.
So, like, Otis Graves is not the same Otis from Superman 2. It's not the same Otis from the animated series.
Right.
And then Mercy is just, she seems infinitely more competent than she was. And she's not saying that Mercy was incompetent before, but it was just very, very strong.
Always kind of just Lex's body. She was just kind of Lex's bodyguard.
Well, exactly. Another thing that I don't like, however, is it's Supergirl's falling into the same tropes again and taking whatever is the hot social justice topic of the day and writing it into the entire season. You know what I mean? Because that was the entire thing last year, was all anti-gun, anti-military kind of sentimentality about it, and that stretched the whole season. And while maybe one or two episodes, you know, touching about the subjects, these are very important subjects to talk about. It's just it feels like it's just, you know, a little forced at times.
It is. It's kind of like when I was on the Legend of the Traveling TARDIS Doctor Who show here on the Krypton Radio Network. We talked about that a lot this week because of the arachnids in the UK episode of Doctor Who being so heavy-handed on like the Trump and you know, that stuff.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, it's definitely something that's happening a lot in TV. Supergirl does have a history of doing it. Chris, did you have anything else to add about this episode, or do you want me to get into my?
No, you can jump right into yours.
Sure
Dave said a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, first of all, the one thing I want to say right away is that I love the fact that because they mentioned the vice president in the previously on Supergirl, and immediately I wrote down just again how much I love this casting, that it's Bruce Boxleiter, who's not only Tron, but he's also Captain Sheridan from Babylon 5. Which, yes, I'm one of those people that like Babylon 5. It is my guilty pleasure sci-fi show. Fight me on it. I thought the concept of irradiating the air with kryptonite was interesting. We got John saving the day, which I really enjoyed as well, because I always like when you see John in his Martian green, you know, visage doing stuff. I mean, he's been kind of like pacifist Martian Manhunter, which I've been calling him the Martian Manhugger ever since then. I think Brainiac 5 is a great addition to the cast. I like him infinitely more than I liked Wynn. There's, you know, they really built this suspense in Kara falling out of the sky, but I've always felt like in these superhero shows, there really is no suspense in that moment for me, because I know she's going to be okay. She's Supergirl. She's the title show. But so when we first flash back, I don't know if they showed like a 2 years ago, because I didn't see it. It might have been like while I was looking down to get a drink of water.
No, so I don't believe they did.
I thought we were still in present day, and I didn't realize at first, and I was just like, because I knew that Sam Witwer was Agent Liberty, so I was just kind of like, well, that's a little weird, because it seems like he's going to, you know, like he's like a liberal college professor. How is that going to turn into the xenophobic Agent Liberty? And then I realized that we were in the past as things went on. When Alex showed up and she had her old, like, Alex hair, that was when I realized, like, oh, okay. You can draw, obviously, a huge parallel to the alien refugees, to foreign refugees coming into this country. The term roaches, I thought, was interesting. We've been hearing that for a few weeks now, that's kind of like what they're choosing to call the alien refugees. They're calling them roaches, which I think is, you know... I liked Agent Liberty's story. I like the fact that he's not just racist to be racist. And I feel like when you're telling stories about subjects like racism, it's very easy to just paint it as stone cold evil, and this guy is just racist because he's racist and he's just a horrible person. We got to watch this educated college professor go through a series of events throughout his life, horrifying events that were all, you know, brought on by alien invaders, and watch the slow progression of him. And to be honest, like Swan knows, I've been decrying Sam Witwer since The Force Unleashed 2, but he won me back with this episode. I really enjoyed his portrayal. I thought the slow descent into madness was absolutely perfect. I liked his point, like, as you watch, like, his college classes going, he made the point about progress and how progress for the Europeans was not progress for the Native Americans. I thought it was absolutely awesome. The subject of superhero collateral damage is something that we've seen a lot in shows recently over the last couple of years. Obviously, Civil War being a big thing that talks about that, and we really got to see, like, Martian Manhunter stops the Daxamite from, like, killing them, but their house is, like, fully on fire, and he's just like, no need to thank me, folks, and then just flies off into the sky. I thought that was really interesting. And honestly, I thought Jimmy Olsen was kind of a jerk when Lockwood went to meet with him. Swan, you had something you wanted to add?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's actually exactly what you're saying here. Something that I thought was a little heavy-handed was the fact that Professor Lockwood had interaction with every single member of the main cast.
Yes.
Fair. That is fair.
Before he became Agent Liberty.
Yeah.
Like, he met every... I'm like, you know, it's a small world, but I don't know if it's that small.
Right.
Like...
Yeah.
Right, he runs into Lena, he runs into John, he runs into Alex, and he runs into Kara in the bar.
Yes, yeah.
That was definitely.
So I thought that was a bit much, but other than that, I think everything was okay.
I mean, you know, in the classroom scene where he finally, like, kind of goes off the rails. Like, we've all been in that college classroom where the professor just goes off on a rant. You know,
Oh
like,
yeah,
a rant about something. And I felt like it really portrayed that, like, and like when he says to, like, the girl, he's just like, oh, well, you know, I would expect that from someone with your complexion. I was like, it was really well done and, like, kind of building the tension. I feel like one thing that Supergirl has no subtlety in these things because they use a lot of the hot button language that we hear a lot of the day. Like, I think Lockwood calls the girl a snowflake at one point when he's in the bar. He says something about making America great. So it's just like, hey, in case you're not getting it, this is what this is about. Yeah. At first, I really thought that Lockwood was just a placeholder for half the season until Lex gets here. But they've really made him, because that is a thing that's been confirmed, folks. Lex Luthor is coming like a freight train. And they've made him... they've made Agent Liberty compelling. I really enjoy him as a character, so I'm interested in his. I'm hoping when Lex shows up, he doesn't just shoot him.
I'm very curious to see what happens. I mean, we know what's going to happen. Obviously, we're going towards President Luthor.
Yes,
the story that's it's clear as day. Mm-hmm. That's the story that they're telling,
Absolutely.
which is why they've made such great lengths to keep Superman off-world. And everything like that.
Well, that and the fact that they were going to irradiate the air with kryptonite, so Superman had to go somewhere too.
Yeah.
And real quick before we have to break for commercial, I wanted to touch on Mercy and Otis as well. I'm a huge fan of the way they're doing this. Otis is still stupid, but he's like stupid in a creepy way, like a dead-eyed way almost. Like I when I look at Otis, I think sociopath.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah,
they couldn't do Otis on Supergirl the way they did Otis in the movies.
No,
because that was a cartoon character.
Yes, it was.
And you can't put a cartoon character in, as realistic as a superhero show can be, realistic show.
Right.
You say that, but we have Ralph Dibny, who is pretty much a giant cartoon character.
Watch what you say about my best friend.
I love Ralph, and we'll get into that later, but, he is a cartoon.
And the last thing I want to touch on about that is Mercy, because I love the capable, intelligent, dangerous, collagen-lipped up Mercy Graves. Like, come on, those lips have had some work done.
Oh, yeah.
I really am a fan of the take they're going on with Mercy. I'm a big fan of making Lex's henchgoons kind of the big bad of the first half of the season. I think it's a great way to introduce the character. We all know who they are, so we know that they are involved with Lex Luthor. And honestly, I would give real quick before we break for commercial, we've got like a couple seconds left. I would give this episode a solid 7. Chris, what do you give it?
7 is a solid number. I'd give it a 7 as well.
Swan?
I think we're all in line with that. I would go 7 also.
All right. Well, folks, we're going to take a quick commercial break, and then we're going to come back with a discussion on The Flash, Season 5, Episode 4, News Flash, after these words.
Channeling the Mothership is an exciting journey into the higher mysteries. Certified psychic medium and clairvoyant Jerry McDaniel's readings, writings, and messages have been received by thousands of people in more than 45 countries. These messages have been obtained by channeling his higher self. How does he do it? Is it a blessing or a curse? And what lay beyond the reach of your five senses? These mysteries and so much more are examined in this explosive book, Channeling the Mothership. Explore the mysteries of the spiritual and the metaphysical. Channeling the Mothership by author Jerry McDaniel. Available on Amazon.com today.
It's Germany, 1938. Charlotte is a 15-year-old girl living in the Jewish quarter. George lives in the city proper and enamored by Charlotte's charm and grace when she wanders into his cobbler shop. George decides right then and there that he is going to marry her. Follow along as this unlikely couple struggles to stay one step ahead of the Gestapo and their dramatic escape from Nazi Germany. Good Things Always Happen in Springtime from author Joanne Fisher on Amazon.com today.
How you doing, everybody? This is KG Bethlehem. I'm an author of a new book called Certain Moments of Time. It's a collection of short stories. These short stories range from post-apocalyptic, dystopian, anti-utopia, as well as general fiction. You can find Certain Moments of Time on sale at Amazon.com, where you can purchase the ebook format as well as paperback format. You can also purchase it at Lulu.com, paperback format, and will be on sale soon at BarnesandNoble.com.
And now, back to your host, Kevin J. Kessler.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Watchtower. Thank you, our sponsors. We got some great. The Visca sounded like Jim Ross. We got some great sponsors on this show, so make sure to check them out, folks. We're jumping right in to The Flash, which has always been one of my all-time favorite superhero television shows, and we're going season 5, episode 4, News Flash. Dave Swan, tell me, how did it take them 5 seasons to make an episode called News Flash?
All right. I'm going to start off by saying that I absolutely love the Flash TV show. The Flash is my favorite of all the Berlanti-verse shows or Arrowverse shows, whatever you want to call it. I love Grant Gustin ever since he was on Glee. You know, I'm ride or die with Grant Gustin. Okay. But I hated this episode.
Really? Okay, take me through it, Dave Swan.
That is interesting, yeah.
I hated this episode. This reminded me of like something from Smallville season 1 or 2.
Oh,
okay.
But they were kind of trying to get their footing still.
Mm-hmm.
The whole idea now of meta weapons, like the fact that a cell phone now has superpowers. Like, I don't know if this is really a direct. Like, I'm fine with the dagger or the lightning bolt weapon of
a cicada.
Of cicada. I'm fine with that, but the cell phone that hypnotizes people by posting news headlines.
It was a little lame.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
I'm trying to think of a Smallville Freak of the Week that we can compare this to. I mean, Bug Boy is always my first go-to when talking about lame villains.
Oh, so, God, Bug Boy.
But because this is a thing, I think you have to compare it to, like, Pete's Kryptonite car.
Yes! That was the Pete's Kryptonite gum. Wow, Pete had a lot of really weird Kryptonite things.
But, yeah, I mean, I didn't care for this episode. I liked the Ralph Dibny and Sherlock Wells. You know, their subplot, that was fine. And the Iris, you know, kind of backstory or future story, however you want to word it. Right. I mean, that was interesting, but the villain of the week just did not do it for me.
Probably one of the worst ones in Flash history. Chris, how'd you feel about this episode?
I agree a lot with Dave's sentiments about the cell phone being a little lame and stuff like that, but it was nice to get a little bit more backstory on why Iris and Nora's relationship is so estranged. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Because we were just hearing she's, you know, typical teenager, doesn't like my mom, blah, 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 blah. Granted, she's not a teenager. She looks, you know, about the same age as Barry in these.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to assume that, like, it's very interesting that she's only now just developing her powers. She's the person who casted as Nora has been doing a great job. I may have wanted to cast somebody who was like a little younger, like an actual teenager or something, just to get like kind of that Wally West feel, I guess, or Bart Allen. But that being said, like, Nora has been doing a great job in it. It's been very fun watching her grow with that. We don't need to get more into Metatech because I think we all just established that it's a terrible idea. This season of Flash, it's the only good thing that I've seen come out of it so far is we're not fighting another speedster. You know?
I mean, we didn't fight a speedster last season. We had.
I mean, that is true, but it started off with another speedster as the enemy.
Yeah.
The very first guy he's fighting. Granted, it wasn't. It eventually became DeVoe was the overarching theme, but the very first battle we got in Flash last season was against another speedster.
Yes, absolutely.
You know, so it's nice. It's refreshing that the speedsters are all on one side. I want Ralph to be more involved in the actual Team Flash.
Yeah, I'm going to get into that in a second as well.
Yeah, but like him working with Sherlock and kind of like trying to one up each other on who's the best detective was a fun kind of idea, and it was cool to see Cicada in the background of it and just growing into the villain. We still have no idea what his goals in mind are, like what his actual reason of doing this, but it's been interesting.
Yep. So yeah, for me, I mean, my first take on the episode was it's good to see that Iris is as good of a cook as she is as a team leader. That's what my immediate thought while she was making her pancakes in the beginning. And you know what? And I will say one thing about Barry Allen. He is a loyal dude. I mean, he ate those pancakes, and at the end of the episode, he stood by future Iris's ridiculous decision to LoJack her child. I'll get to that. I think the Iris being jealous about Nora's story, I've hated it since the second it began. And
I just hate Iris.
Well, yeah, if you know me, you know that Iris West Allen is not my favorite character. I feel like she kind of flounders with no real purpose. I don't know what qualifies her to lead a team of metahumans when her biggest contribution to the battle is usually, Barry, you got to get out of there.
Come on, she has the second most successful blog in Central City.
The second most successful blog. Sherlock Wells. I like the concept of Sherlock Wells, but I feel like we need a one where we find out that he's been doing a fake French accent and he's not actually French, because I can't handle Tom Cavanaugh's French accent for another episode. It's mud. It's a little.
You
much.
Want H.G. Wells to come back?
Yeah. The Barry playing softball was one of the most adorable things I've ever seen in the history of the show. When he got put out in right field, I was like, I feel you, buddy, because that's where I was, way up where the dandelions grow. All
right, so I have a question.
Sure.
All right. So, was he pulling a Clark Kent? Like, was he purposely playing that bad?
I think he was just not using his...
Even if he's not using his powers, he should be a little bit more coordinated than that.
Listen, I mean, take it from me. Like, you know, as a former pro wrestler, I can be pretty coordinated in the ring, but put me in a baseball field, and I'm not gonna be able to do much of anything. So, I mean, I did get it. Like but this is also a guy who catches lightning bolts. He couldn't catch a high pop fly in the right field. So yes, I get you on that one. I loved the idea that like Iris was being all like petty about Spin Zone being more popular than her blog, and when Nora is just like, it's got 3 times as many followers as your blog, like I was just like, yeah, Nora,
suck it, Iris.
Love Ralph the detective. I'm really enjoying Ralph the detective this season. We're going into a lot of that because apparently it's not in the budget to actually have him stretch.
No, it's not.
We have been through. This is now the 4th episode of the season, and Ralph Dibny has stretched maybe once in the last episode.
Yeah, he turned into the pear.
Yeah, when he turned into the pear, and it's apparently now a meme. Nora having to stop the fire by herself was a great moment for Nora because we got to relive that moment where Barry had to learn how to do the wind tunnels.
Mm-hmm.
And I love Nora so much. They're using a lot more of the hot button words. Iris called Spin Zone fake news. No Cisco this week, which I really felt his his absence this week. Cisco.
Yeah, you don't know how much you miss Cisco till he's gone.
Did you happen to notice the one thing that I think a lot of people overlooked is that Nora is at least bisexual, if not gay?
Oh, 100%.
Oh
100%.
yeah, no, I noticed that.
Yeah. I fist pumped. I was so happy that Nora is like on the queer spectrum. That made me very, very happy. I loved the XS versus Flash fight because it was also like it was not a fair fight. Like if you watch them race around the stadium, Barry is lapping her.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I also love knowing that Future Iris also sucks. Like
It doesn't change.
Yeah, to implant a power dampening chip in your child, to take away, to not only take away your child's choice in the future, but then sight unseen justify your own actions, knowing nothing about whether or not you made a mistake. That is a level of arrogance that made my head explode.
Yeah,
I was so angry.
There are 52 multiverses, and each one of them, Iris West, still sucks.
Exactly, that's the one constant of the multiverse. So the meta tech, I'm kind of with Swan in the fact that a cell phone being a meta device is kind of weird. I'm sure with Berlanti's, love of doing gun control episodes, we will get a meta gun at some point this season. We'll probably get a meta car at some point as a harken back to Smallville with Pete's Kryptonite drag racing. And by the way, I was really mad at Barry at the end of this episode, where he was just like...
Where he agreed with Iris?
Yeah, he's like, I'm sure whatever... It reminded me of, like, my mom and dad and how, like, they always side with each other. Like, if my mom was like, the sky is green and the grass is blue, I'd be like, Dad, Mom thinks that the sky is green. He'd be like, it's the greenest emerald I've ever seen. And, they're that united front. You could tell Nora was so aggravated by that, and I felt her pain. Also... probably triggering for Nora when Iris shot her with the thing and turned her powers off because it's like, oh my god,
100%
again. So yeah, really good. So on a scale of 1 to 10, Dave Swan, who did not like this episode, what do you get it?
I'm gonna give it a 4. Because I did like the Ralph stuff. And there were still moments. I did like some of the stuff with Caitlin and Sherlock. Mm-hmm. Like there was stuff in there that I did like, but as a whole, I did not care for it.
Okay, Chris Doherty, what do you have for this episode?
I'm surprised, Dave, but I'm giving this guy a 6. It wasn't as strong as Supergirl, but I wouldn't exactly say it was bad. It was like a D, like a solid D.
A D is still a passing grade. I mean, what do you call a person in medical school that graduates with a D?
Doctor.
Yeah. So I'm gonna probably side with Chris a little bit more on here. I'm gonna give it a 6 as well, just because it was not as strong as Supergirl this week, and the concept of the phone was a little much. So yeah, I'm giving it that solid 6, and that's kind of where I'm leaving it now. I'm wondering the concept of the meta tech is going to be interesting as we go into the different episodes. I'm hoping that the cell phone will be the lamest of them.
Oh, Kevin, don't say that now.
I know.
You jinxed us.
I know that it won't be. The Flash still remains an excellent show. And Swan, in our last minute before commercial, you want to touch on something?
Yeah, well, I just wanted to bring up the fact that news broke yesterday that Jesse L. Martin is going to be leaving the show temporarily.
Jesse L. Martin is which character?
Is Papa West.
Oh, Joe.
Okay.
Joe. Apparently he was injured between last season and this season, which is why he's only been shown sitting down this
interesting.
So far.
Okay.
So apparently they're going to have to write him out of the show to deal with whatever injury so he can have surgery and stuff like that.
I'm sure that'll be easy enough to do. Joe can go on like a cop retreat or something like that. I noticed he wasn't playing in the softball game, so...
Yeah, well, that's why.
All right, so that's going to wrap it up for this episode of The Flash. When we come back, we are going to be discussing Black Lightning Season 2, Episode 4, The Book of Consequences, Chapter 4, The Translucent Freak. So after these words...
From author Sherry Rentschler comes the Evening Bower series, a prophecy from the lost city of Atlantis, a pairing whose union will change the future. Magical creatures, prophecy, destiny, and love collide in a new kind of romance. It's Sherry Rentschler's Evening Bower series, a haunting and compelling tale pulled from humanity's lost histories. Begin the adventure with Time and Blood on Amazon.com today. Forever is only the beginning.
This is Cosplayer Michael with the Hanging Out Club Show. I want to tell you about my friends at Embellis Effects in Orlando, Florida. They've got makeup, costumes, and props for all of your costume needs. And the team at Embellis Effects is helpful and friendly. Embellis Effects is one of my favorite places, and I know it will be yours too. I'll see you there. Or go to embelliseffects.com. And remember, cosplay is for everyone.
And now, back to the Watchtower.
Oh, there was no second Batman thing this time. Folks, we are back. Welcome back to the Watchtower. We are going to be talking about Black Lightning. Now, this is going to be a conversation between just Chris and I because Swan has not, you have not watched a single episode of Black Lightning, right?
That is correct.
And that's because, David's told me about this, it's because it's not interconnected with the other shows, which I totally get. Black Lightning does kind of stand on its own. So, Chris, we've got Black Lightning Season 2, Episode 4, The Book of Consequences, Chapter 4, The Translucent Freak. Your opinions on this episode?
I enjoyed it. It's nice to see Tobias Whale getting out of prison so that we can continue that whole overarching story. I'm not really a huge fan of the fact that that Jefferson is no longer the principal. And
infuriating. It's an infuriating storyline.
Really upsetting. So I'm not a super fan of that. It's not. I don't like seeing him getting punked out by this little white guy. And that's literally all it is. It's just like trying to cause more racial tension, which I don't know. The show's already built on. I don't really think that they need to keep pushing those buttons necessarily because there's already so much of it going on. That being said, I love the dynamic with the daughter still going on. He's still a father first, superhero second. So he's with Thunder and now Lightning eventually joining in on it. It's cool to watch her develop into a superhero herself. That being said, Tobias is still a very dangerous criminal, and the fact that he's out and back, it's going to be really interesting.
Not only out and back, but the fact that Tobias Whale is now in the public eye.
Oh, yeah.
He's no longer in hiding. He's been, he's hiding for 30 years because he was accused of this crime. Now he's been vindicated of it, and now he's essentially setting himself up as the kingpin of the DC universe. So the thing I love, the character that I love the most in Black Lightning is Jen, the younger daughter.
Yep.
I love Jen's journey, and I really enjoy this mental therapy that she's going through to learn how to control her power. When the scene where Khalil walks into the house and hits everybody with the
darts,
barbs, I was like, "There's no way this isn't a dream." First of all, Jen's doing crazy kung fu that she's never learned before, and secondly, the second he walked into that house, Jefferson would have lightning bolted him out the door.
Oh, 100%.
Walking into his house, oh no. I really loved the one line that the therapist lady, whose name I can never remember, she says to Jen, she goes, "You are the storm. You control the storm." I loved that line. My other thought is Khalil grew a whole, when we saw the flashbacks of Khalil, before the accident, I was like, Khalil grew a whole lot of hair really fast.
They explained it last season by saying it's some sort of experimental treatment that made his hair grow. It was a throwaway line just so that he can have the dreadlocks, but
which he looks so much cooler with the dreadlocks.
Infinitely so. He went from looking like the average clean cut track star to a credible threat.
Tobias, I loved the interrogation scene with Tobias. He was in perfect control the entire time. That dude is smooth. He did not.
Oh yeah.
And even while he was sitting in that chair, he was in 100% control of that conversation. Anissa, I like the spiral of Anissa, that she's kind of getting a little out of control. She thinks she's invincible.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, and I like how they said how it mirrors Jefferson's first run as Black Lightning, which we don't really know a lot about. We just know that Tobias beat the hell out of him real bad, and he almost died. So I think that to mirror that, at some point in this season, we're going to see Anissa go up against Tobias or somebody of equal strength, and she's going to get beaten really bad. I think that's going to be the lesson that Anissa's going to have to learn. I was a little upset that Kara, the assistant principal, she died, right?
I believe so. I think she might be on like life support or something. But,
yeah, I really wanted a confrontation with her and Jefferson over the fact that she was snatching kids from his school.
Yeah.
And I was wondering if Gamby was playing her. I don't love Gamby as a character. Speaking of characters that I don't love, Principal Lowry, who, the white savior complex. That was a big thing in this episode, was the white savior. You had Principal Lowry, who last week Jefferson called the white savior. You had that long-haired drug dealer, the one that's going to go after Anissa. And Tobias said something about, oh, you white folks loving to come in and save everybody. And now my question is is Gamby a white savior?
That is actually, did they inadvertently write him like that?
I don't maybe it is. And I'm wondering if that's ever going to come up, because Gamby comes onto the streets and is doing these horrible things, and then all of a sudden wants to save everybody. And I thought that was interesting. And,
True.
I find it, here's the thing. Barry Allen, okay, who's Barry Allen? Who's Kara Danvers? Oliver Queen wears a hood, and the Legends, none of them really have, secret identities. But Jefferson is an established member of this community. Everyone knows who he is. The Black Lightning masks are a pair of sunglasses. The fact that Tobias Whale is like, I need to find out who he is. I was just like, no, he's Jefferson.
The fact that the head police officer, who is Jefferson's friend,
his best friend, could stare him in the face. Like I said this, I was making this point to Swan the other day. I was like, if you came up to me in a parking lot at night wearing sunglasses, I'd be like, hey, Swan, why are you wearing sunglasses at night? But
his voice is different. He has a little bit of a voice emulator on it.
So, Chris, what do you give Black Lightning this episode for?
I thought it was solid. I'd give it a 7.
I would give it probably, I would give it a 5.5. I didn't really. Black Lightning the show is so different from the rest of them that it takes me a little bit to try to really get into it. I was bored through a lot of this episode. So let's move on to Arrow, Season 7, Episode 3, Crossing Lines. We're going to bring Dave back into this. So we find inmate 4587 in a bit of a bind here, working with Brick and all of the others trying to get his information. So, Swan, what were your thoughts on this episode?
Of Arrow?
Yes,
I'll tell you what. I'm actually enjoying this season of Arrow a lot more than I have the recent seasons. And, the whole Oliver Queen in jail storyline, I thought this was going to be a rehash of the Barry Allen in jail storyline. It was going to be a rehash of Archie Andrews in jail from Riverdale, which is another Greg Berlanti show. I find it very interesting that Greg Berlanti loves his heroes in jail storylines for whatever reason.
It's really weird. And when we first opened up the season and Oliver was doing the tally marks on the wall, I'm like, this is what Barry was doing last season.
Yeah. But I enjoyed this episode. I was happy. What I think I've enjoyed the most about this season is that they are giving the supporting characters much more time to shine.
Yes.
Because Oliver is very limited as to what he can actually do. And, so he's only getting maybe 15 minutes per episode, and now the rest of Team Arrow and the other supporting cast members are getting a lot of time. And I think that's a good thing. I think it's a good thing for the show long run to continue to flesh out these characters. Mm-hmm. And I enjoyed this episode quite a bit.
Awesome. Chris, what do you have to say about this episode of Arrow?
Oh, I thought it was a lot of fun watching the fight club that they had. Cody Rhodes being one of the guys fighting against Arrow is always fun. I've always loved his character on the show, Samson. And just being a huge wrestling fan like you two are, seeing Cody Rhodes crossing lines into this was really interesting.
I like that he's been in every episode thus far. Like Samson.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And it just goes to show that these problems that Oliver dealt with don't just go away. They're still around, which is something you don't really get a whole ton of in Flash in the other shows because they're, villain of the week and then they're done. They put them in the pipeline, then they're done. I think really realistically, the only villains that are still kind of reoccurring from Flash is Heatwave, and he's on Legends.
Yes.
So it's nice to have a little level of realism to Arrow. Oliver's been very solid, like you guys have been saying. This season has come back extremely strong. It's been nice to see Felicity and the rest of Team Arrow taking more of a role. But something I found interesting about this particular episode, something was missing. There was no flashback or flash forward.
Yeah.
In this case. And that's an Arrow staple. You don't watch an Arrow without watching it out of order.
Well, and that's the thing. Last season, we didn't have any flashes of any kind because, you know, the island storyline was over and done with. And now all of a sudden we've got this flash forward. Now, how many years do you guys think that is in the future? I was talking to Swan about this the other day because I think it's at least 10.
It has to be at least 10.
Yeah, I think 10 is probably the best guess.
Maybe even 15, though, because Roy is pretty wrinkly.
Well, you also have to look at how old his son is. They wouldn't have to recast the person to play his son if it was just like 5 years in the future. You know what I mean?
I love, by the way, that
look like that.
Can I just also say that I love that all the heroes of this DC universe have gay kids?
That's true. Yeah. That is an overwhelming,
fantastic.
I love an overarching theme lately is that all the superhero kids are gay. It's very interesting.
I think it's a take on just modern day, and people are just coming up with the stigma not attached anymore. Yeah. And I think it's great that they're showing open-mindedness and inclusion. Chris, anything else to add about this episode before I go into my spiel about it?
No, I think we've covered everything I want to talk about.
Okay, so here's the thing. My big question that I ask every week, and Swan's heard this rant from me many a time: why Diaz? Why is Diaz the big bad that gets 2 seasons? Of all the big bads on this show, Deathstroke, Ra's al Ghul, Malcolm Merlyn, why is this guy, not even arguably, the weakest big bad the show has ever had? He gets 2 seasons. I can't with him anymore.
Yeah, I've been done with him since last season.
Felicity goes, he's been a plague on our lives for far too long. And I was like, for once, Felicity Smoke, I agree with you.
I have a theory that Diaz is not going to end up being the big bad for the whole season.
I was just going to ask that. Do you think like halfway through the season we get a bigger bad that comes in and takes him out?
Yes, I 100% do.
I think so too. I think that the FBI is working with Diaz in some way. Because, you know, when I don't think Agent Watson was, but I think the pressure to put Oliver Queen in jail kind of came from Diaz, and I think it's a way to weaken the city rather than strengthen it by putting the Green Arrow in prison. I gotta wrap this up because we got another commercial break coming up. I loved everything to do with the Brick, Samson, Bronze Tiger trio. But here's the problem with the show in the last several weeks. Anytime they leave the prison, I'm bored.
That's fair. That is fair.
I love the prison stuff, and all I want is the prison.
Well, it's because right now we have Argus marriage counseling going on.
Yeah, we've got Argus Diggle, which I like that because like Diggle finally feels like he has order and purpose to his life, but now his wife, the director of Argus, is like crossing the realm into vigilantism, which I think is actually really interesting and is a nice blurry gray line for Diggle to deal with. I was saying to Dave the other day, I don't feel like John Diggle has anything left that's new in the tank, and honestly, I feel like he does now. Like, I really like his storyline. I like the Longbow Assassins. I like Silencer. I thought Felicity was cold as ice for setting up Watson like that, though, where they took Silencer.
Oh yeah.
That was ridiculous. And now my final thought on the episode is Oliver's getting taken to level 2 of the prison. If Samson, Brick, and Bronze Tiger are on level 1, who is on level 2?
That's
like who's worse than Brick?
Everybody who's worse is dead.
Yeah.
I
was trying to think. I was like, oh,
like Ra's al Ghul, Malcolm Merlyn, Deathstroke. They're or Damien Dark. They're either dead or good now.
Yeah.
All right, so Dave Swan, 1 out of 10. What do you give this episode of Arrow?
I'll give it a 7.
Yep. Chris, what do you give it?
I'd have to give it a 6, I think. It wasn't, like, super strong, and as I said before, outside of the actual prison scenes, it wasn't, like, super strong, but it was enjoyable.
I'm going to be a bit more lenient than you guys. I'm going to give it a 7.5, close to an 8. but
wow,
I'm going to give it 7.5. I really enjoyed this episode. I've really been enjoying this season. I think Arrow is back, and I'm really glad to see it kind of returning to a dominant position. Folks, we're going to take our last commercial break of the episode, and we'll be back to talk about DC's Legends of Tomorrow right after this.
We all have one shot at life. Rambling Across America by Tommy Ray is an adventure about chasing dreams. In brilliant prose, follow Tommy Ray through personal experience, inspirational quotes, and photos from his Confessions of a Dreamer tour. Woke one night from a dream, Tommy resigned his safe, secure position and took a leap of faith. Now, he invites you to follow his journey. Rambling Across America by Tommy Ray. Get it on Amazon.com because today is going to be ridiculously amazing.
Grab some altitude and adventure together at Pound the Grape. It's all about an adventure above the crowd. There's always something different happening there, from painting to food pairings to dancing. But one thing's rock solid, people sharing incredible wines from around the world. And if that's not what puts Lift under your wing, try their craft beer. Grab some altitude and adventure at Pound the Grape. Find more at poundthegrape.com. Poundthegrape.com. Pour a glass of adventure.
Famous Faces and Funnies in Melbourne, Florida is leading the way in pop culture fun. From comic books and graphic novels to Funko Pops and collector's items, Famous Faces and Funnies has it all. Rick Shea and the professional team at Famous Faces and Funnies are friendly and knowledgeable. Whether you're looking for toys, props, collector treasures, or a new comic book, Famous Faces and Funnies is your one-stop shop. To find Famous Faces and Funnies on Facebook and Twitter, just type at FFF Comics.
You're listening to the Justice Watchtower on Krypton Radio.
Watchtower is online.
Welcome back to the Watchtower, folks, and I'm really glad that we've got the rest of the show to talk about DC Legends of Tomorrow, Season 4, Episode 2, entitled Witch Hunt. Now, Dave Swan, I feel like this show has kind of taken a turn that you don't unturn from, but I love it. Like, it kind of reminds me of when Boy Meets World suddenly went off the rails.
Yeah, well, I mean, Legends last season kind of went off the rails. I mean, the big,
they're
big
fighting
final
unicorns
battle.
and godfathers now.
Forget the big final battle last year was a dragon versus Voltron Bilbo or whatever.
BMO.
I love Bilbo. I want a Bilbo.
So I mean, it's definitely been, losing control and going off the rails, but I mean, it's fully out there now.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love it. I have a lot to say about this, so I figure let you guys get your initial thoughts out, and then we'll
go ahead.
bounce back and forth.
All right. Well, let's just start about how self-aware this show is. We're going to backtrack a little bit to episode 1 of this, where Ray straight up says, let's hope the ratings are good.
Right.
This is what people like. They like supernatural stuff on this channel, right?
The Time Bureau keeps ratings of all this. That was a genius line. The writing stuff of Legends is so spot on.
Oh, and I just feel like at this point they're just like, wow, they gave us another season. We stopped having stuff to write about 2 seasons ago.
Honestly.
Let's just throw everything at the wall, see what sticks, and just go with it. And I'm loving it. It is just so campy and hilarious.
When I talk about this show a lot, I call it the break room, because I feel it's like where all the secondary characters go when they have nothing to do, and they just have ridiculous adventures.
Oh, exactly. And I'm not necessarily super happy with how Ray is being portrayed, because I thought he used to be so much more of a stronger character back in Arrow, back in Flash, back at the earlier seasons of Legends. But still, the bromance with him and I'm forgetting Steele's name.
Nate.
But him and Nate's bromance.
Nate rhymes with hate, which is what I have for that character.
I mean, that bromance blossoming is really fun to see.
Is it Chris, or is it two of the exact same character doing the exact same things to each other?
I mean, isn't that what most friendship is?
No! In a world where we already have Ray Palmer, we don't need Citizen Steele.
I mean, we don't need Wally West either.
I kind of feel like they wrote him off this week, which I'll get to in a second.
They definitely did. The whole father storyline and him now taking more of a position at the Time Bureau. It's definitely interesting. It's also fun to think that the Time Bureau is a government-sanctioned position and not just a bunch of vigilantes from the future, which is kind of what they always... Not vigilantes, I guess, isn't the right word, but, they thought it's answered to a higher power than just Joe Schmo and the dollar bill.
Uh-huh.
But, the fairy godmother coming in and bibbity-bobbiting everybody out was just very interesting. Evil Disney. That's what this episode was.
Yeah.
She straight up said, "Oh, I dealt with Cinderella."
Yeah, Cinderella was real. That's a real thing that happened.
That is something that is now canonical. We cannot come back from here. But Constantine now becoming a regular part of the show is also something that's extremely exciting.
Definitely a welcome addition. So I loved the writing this week. I thought the whole thing with Ray talking about mysteries, and right after that Sarah goes, "Let's get our Puritan." I was like, oh my God, that's great. But every time we cut away to go to the Nate and his father storyline, I screamed, "I don't care" at the screen. There are two characters on this show that I don't like. One is Nate, and the other is Gary, the time dweeb. And,
oh, you don't like Gary?
No, I wrote in big letters, like, can we please have a week without Gary?
Why? What's wrong with Gary?
He's painfully not funny. I got my nipple bitten off by a unicorn. Bully for you. The only thing I like about Gary is that he's queer representation on the show. I both love and hate John Constantine on this show. I love him because he's an amazing character and he brings a lot of depth and awesomeness to this story, especially from a supernatural standpoint. I hate him though because I'm currently writing a book series about a snarky British sorcerer who chain smokes. So I'm like the last thing I needed was John Constantine to come back into the public eye, but here it is. Is it wrong that I cheered for the Crows when the Crows swept down and started pecking Puritan eyes out during the
No, not at all.
No, absolutely not.
The Mick Rory, John Constantine, I need more of that duo.
Yeah, that's been an interesting kind of dynamic.
Yes.
They needed to because beforehand it was Mick and Ray. And they've kind of squashed everything over the last 4 years.
And Mick and Ray, it's old hat at this point. The fairy godmother wanting revenge on mankind and trying to incite anger in children to make them want to hurt people, it's a stroke of genius, and I absolutely loved it. When the fairy godmother showed up, when we first saw that it was a fairy godmother, I lost it. I fell over laughing.
Oh, yeah. My jaw dropped. I was like, really? This is the direction we're going? Last week we had murderous unicorns.
Well,
now
when
we
she
have
started
fairy
singing.
godmothers?
When she started singing, and I loved the concept that Constantine can't send her to hell because she's attached to the girl, and of course John Constantine's not going to do that. Z wanting to change history was interesting. There were a lot of parallels to be drawn between Z's struggle and I don't hate that storyline, but I'm not super in love with it yet. I love how it's this thing with a lot of in Marvel movies and stuff like that too, where it's just like, okay, well, we can believe that there's a super fast guy, there's a man shark, and there's a psychic gorilla, but magic, come on now. I don't like how people don't want to believe that. I loved everything in this episode with the exception of, like I said, the Citizen Steel Dad stuff, including how he could somehow communicate with Pig Ray.
Yeah, that was weird. I just chalked it up to Gideon.
When he was like, oh, Mick too? I'm just like, what? I mean, you could chalk it up to Gideon. She does have the TARDIS kind of power to translate things, but come on. Sarah kicking Puritan toxic male butt was amazing. More of that all day, every day. Sarah punching Puritan men in the face. I want to know the somebody coming for Constantine thing. I think that's very interesting, and I'm hoping that please let Nate not come back and let him join the Time Bureau. Chris, you had a point.
Well, I was just saying, I don't know. I feel like Sarah's just become a little bit lame of a character compared to everybody else on the show right now. And I think it's honestly because she's getting a happy ending. And maybe it's the cynic in me, and I just don't like my superheroes having happy endings.
Is it wrong that I kind of hope Damien Dark comes back just to kill the director of the Time Bureau so that Sarah gets some more? No. Swan, you'd wanted to elaborate more, so what do you got?
Well, I think it's interesting that Legends has always been interesting because I can't think of another television show that's rotated out cast members as frequently and as fast as Legends has. And, I totally forgot that, Vixen left last season. It seems like we have a really... the smallest Legends roster we've ever had at this point.
True. Yeah. I felt that too, with Wally leaving for no reason.
Yes.
Wally leaving to probably pay for Constantine.
Yeah. Well, no, the actor that plays Wally actually has like a film career, so he's...
Oh, good for him.
Yeah, he's off doing other stuff. But, well, what's your thoughts on the ISIS character?
The ISIS character?
Amara? Not Amara, Z.
Z. Yeah, that's her. I mean, that's your superhero name in the comics. They'll never call her that on the show.
I was about to say, what?
For the record, she is called Isis in the comics. We are not calling her an ISIS character because she is Middle Eastern or anything like that.
No,
her name is Z on the show now because they can't call her ISIS. I mean, I don't have a problem with her. Like I said, I'm kind of whelmed by her. I'm not over or underwhelmed.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like she needs to have a point, and hopefully sooner than later.
She earned a lot of goodwill with me last season when we did when she did the Groundhog Day episode.
Okay,
like she got a pass from me with that episode because it was amazing.
Yeah, and I do like that Ray is shrinking again.
Yeah, they finally put that back in the. They finally put that back in the thing. I liked all the pop-ups at Woodstock from the premiere with like Janis Joplin and Jimi Hendrix.
That was fun.
Yes, that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, they definitely have put some of the Ray Palmer budget back into the show, which maybe we'll have Ray in his suit more.
Yeah.
Well, I'd hope so, because there's no superpowers on any of the other shows going on right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, in a world where Ralph Dibny has stretched into a pear one time. This entire season, it's definitely okay. So, Chris, Swan? Did you have anything else you wanted to add about this episode?
No. I mean, I think we've kind of covered.
Okay, Chris Doherty, what do you give this between 1 and 10?
Oh, I give it an 8. This was my favorite episode this week of all the shows. In general, the DC Universe had a really strong week, in my opinion, but this one took the cake. I give it an 8.
Absolutely. Dave Swan, what do you give it between 1 and 10?
I'm going to go with a 7. I'm going to say a 7. I thought it was a strong episode. I did.
Dave Swan is Russian judge this week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I was just saying, I think that Legends is going to have to ground itself a little bit. I think that the Fairy Godmothers, and I know there's a puppet episode coming up.
Cannot wait.
No, come on, Dave. I just wanted to go even further over this shark. I wanted to jump like 9 sharks.
King sharks.
But, I mean, I'm definitely enjoying it. I'm just... Yeah. It's... we need some type of... I want to get out of the Freak of the Week thing. I feel like it's
I feel like most of the shows are doing that this year. Most of the shows are kind of getting away from the Freak of the Week.
Oh, they are, except for Legends. Legends is the only one that doesn't have a clear-cut big bad right now.
It will.
Yeah.
So real quick before we end, guys, I just want to go around which was the best show this week, and which do you think is having the best season overall thus far, Chris?
Legends has the best episode this week, in my personal opinion, obviously. I think, in general, best show so far has been Arrow.
Yep. Okay, Dave Swan, same question.
I think Supergirl had the best episode this week.
Okay.
And I think... I think I got to go with Arrow is having the best season so far.
Okay, I'm going to actually mirror Chris here. I think that Legends had the best episode this week. It was by far my favorite. It was a lot of fun. And I'm going to say that the best, the Arrow's having the best season thus far. Okay, so that's going to do it for the Watchtower this week, folks. Thank you so much for tuning in for our inaugural episode. Chris, Dave, thank you guys so much. Chris, if folks want to find you, with your cosplay and whatnot, where can they go to find you?
You can find me on Instagram at Chris Doherty QSA or Happily Ever Doherty. We're also doing that on YouTube and everything else, so you can find me there or Facebook.com/Quest for Screen Accuracy.
Awesome. And Swan, where can folks find out more about the UWA Elite and the UWA Elite Network?
You can find out more about UWA Elite at UWAElite.com or UWA Elite on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. It's the same thing right across the board. And we have a big show coming up in South River, New Jersey on November 10th. You can find out more about that on all of our social media.
Fantastic, folks. And please follow the show on Facebook. You can find us over at Facebook over at Just Us Watchtower. Just look for that. And for me, follow me on Twitter at Kevin J. Kessler or my Facebook page at Kevin J. Kessler Author. And, folks, that's going to do it for the Watchtower this week. Thank you. We will see you guys next week with more DC Universe from the CW Network. Watchtower offline.